Well, good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, held on Monday, June 1st, 2020. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg, and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channels. Welcome to councillors and staff who will participate in this meeting. I'll ask for your continuing patience and forgiveness for any technical things that go amiss tonight, usually the result of the mayor making a mistake with the fancy technology on the desk. Hopefully we won't see that. We do have Simon here for our rescue. Warm weather is settling in, and so is our impatience, I suppose, with the restrictions intended to protect us. I'm convinced that physical distancing will be with us for quite a while until we see proof of broad immunity in our community. So accepting those in your households at this time, the province continues to ask that we maintain 2 meters of distance between yourself and others. And until otherwise told, gatherings remain limited to 5 people when intermixing households. The Premier has invited all who wish to be tested, and maybe even some who aren't so willing to be tested, to attend and be tested at a testing center. That was a lot of the use of the word test, wasn't it? We have one testing center in North Perth, in Listowel. For us to assure that we are overcoming system risk, we need to see high testing and tracing performance. I saw many of my neighbors out, working in their gardens, painting their windowsills, sweeping off and sealing driveways. Let's have North Perth shine. Plant a victory garden, grow some vegetables, take advantage of our community garden project. And let's continue to work with kindness and patience with the business community. It is a turbulent time for many of them as more and more of the restrictions have been eased. They're trying to figure out a lot of different things. We ask that you follow the procedures they've put in place for everyone's safety and be respectful. Please be kind and respectful. Many of our fellow citizens, many of our neighbors, many of our friends are still tired and they're still overworked. With that then, let's move on to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time, I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in advance in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. First, I'd like to recognize Deputy Mayor Kellum, who has indicated in advance that he'd like to make a declaration. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd, I would like to declare pecuniary interest on item 5.4.1, the Perth Meadow accounts, as well 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw, as my parents are tenants at Perth Meadows.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Behrens, are you seeking to make a declaration tonight?
Yes, I have submitted to the clerk that I will declare a conflict of interest on 5.4.1 and 13.1, as under normal circumstances, I do have grandchildren that attend the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, any other pre-notifications? Any other councillors wishing to make a declaration, you may so indicate in the chat box. Seeing none, then let's do the brief explanations. Virtual processes, a little bit different than usual council meetings. I will be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I will tend to do this alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining a speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their term to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without further intervention from me. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say should indicate again and will be placed at the bottom of the speaker's list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you are not audible, I will call on you and let you know. You do not need to ask me if you can be heard. I'll let you know. Councillors are further asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, and return to mute. So now let's get down to business. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda this evening, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call first on Councillor Duncan as our mover for that?
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston?
I would second that.
Thank you very much. Any debate or discussion on this motion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Okay, we are stalled with two councillors. Okay, so we have one's come in. Councillor Seiler, what say you?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. So that is carried. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's approval. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councilor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 3 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councilors, do any of you have a desire to revisit any of these items for discussion or action? Please so indicate in the chat window to the clerk. Seeing no such indication, I have a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that consent items 3.1 to 3.3 be received for information, and the minutes of the May 25th, 2020 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion, Mayor Todd.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, would you second that?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? Seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote. And so we're looking for Councillor Seiler again. What say you, Councillor Seiler?
Yes, I am in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. And so that is carried. Thank you very much. All right. At this time, then, we're going to move to agenda item number 4. We have included on tonight's meeting agenda our first virtual land planning public meeting. This is a brave new world and a brave step for our council, and in fact, for any municipal council. We're pretty early in this game. To facilitate the public meeting, we must temporarily adjourn from our regular council meeting, as is usual practice. I have before me a motion to make that happen that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adjourns at 7:10 p.m. for the purpose of a public meeting under the Planning Act concerning a zoning bylaw amendment application by property owners Stefan and Crystal Lutenegger. I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for that.
Yes, I so move.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder? I need you off mute. You lost something.
I will second that.
Thank you, Councillor Seiler. Any discussion or debate amongst council? If there is desire to do so, please indicate in the chat function. Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Seiler, we need your vote for this one too. What say you?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. So that is carried. Council, that means we are temporarily adjourned. Now, we begin our public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. Welcome those who joined us virtually who are interested in this matter, and to councillors, of course, and staff who are already in attendance at this meeting. Again, another welcome. The purpose of this meeting, this is a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Ontario Planning Act to deal with an application for an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw submitted by Stefan and Crystal Lutnegger as owner of the subject property. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made already a written submission to this council. Those who want to receive notice of the municipality's decision concerning this application must notify the clerk by email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, we move to a summary of the application or requested amendment, and that will be offered to us by our planner for North Perth, Mr. Sean Yeilman. Welcome, Sean.
Welcome, or thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. We have just the one application tonight, which has been submitted by property owners Stefan and Crystal Lutnegger, and request to amend the zoning of the subject lands as a condition of a recently approved surplus farm dwelling severance, which is county application file B71-19. The subject lands are located within both the agriculture designation of the County of Perth official plan, with a large portion of the property within the primary and secondary aggregate resource designation. Additionally, the lands are within the agricultural zone, the agricultural A2 zone, which follows the aggregate resource designation, and the natural resources and environment 2 zone. The subject lands are located at the southwest corner of Perth Road 178 and Line 90, and is located just south of the municipal limits between North Perth and Minto. Both the retained and severed lots will remain in the agricultural A zone, but will include conditions identified through the consent process as required through the provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan. Section 5.6.3.1 of the County of Perth official plan requires an amendment to the local implementing zoning bylaw that will prohibit any new permanent residential dwellings from establishing on the retained farmland, and that the proposed severed lot, which has the surplus dwelling, must only be used for residential purposes. As such, the retained farmland, which is approximately 40.1 hectares or 99.2 acres, will be placed into the agricultural A-62 zone. The A-62 zone prohibits any dwelling or mobile home from establishing on the property in the future. Additionally, the severed lands, which are approximately 0.96 hectares or 2.38 acres, will be placed into the agricultural A1 zone. This limits use to one single detached residential dwelling and accessory uses. As I mentioned previously, large portions of both the retained and severed lands are within the primary or secondary aggregate resource designation of the County of Perth official plan, and within the agricultural A-2 zone of the North Perth zoning bylaw. This designation and the A2 zoning represent potential for sand and gravel deposits, and prohibit permanent dwellings from establishing. These areas will remain within the A-2 zone to ensure consistency with the official plan designation, despite the balance of the property being placed within the A1 and A62 zones. It is understood that the property is subject of a surplus farm dwelling severance and that a dwelling cannot be established, further extended, or moved onto the A-2 zone portion. The application for a zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Perth official plan, and meets the requirements of the North Perth zoning bylaw. It is staff's recommendation that council approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yilmaz. We'll turn now to the clerk, who will provide us information about the public meeting details. And just let me see my
Notices inviting persons to the public meeting were mailed on May the 12th, 2020 by first-class mail to landowners within 120 meters of the subject. This notice was different than what has been normally circulated for applications of similar. This included 3 pages of instructions as to how remotely they could join in our council meeting tonight. The notice was also posted on the municipal website and on the subject property on May the 12th, 2020, advising of this public meeting.
Thanks, Fairfelds, and perhaps you can continue to advise us with regards to correspondence, comments, and reports that have been received to this date.
So again, in accordance to the correspondence that was sent to all applicable landowners affected by this zoning bylaw amendment, they were, it was explained that they could contact myself by telephone and make any type of comments. They also had the opportunity to do it by writing, as well as join in this evening by telephone or by WebEx, our remote system. And at this point in time, prior to noon today, we had not received any correspondence, or I did not have any conversations.
Thank you, Fairfelds. At this time, I'm going to ask for those who are in attendance who are in support of the application, other than the applicant, to indicate that they would like to speak through the chat window or from the approved list. As you heard, the clerk does not have any so notified beforehand. Anyone wish to speak in support of this application other than the applicant? Okay, seeing no indication of same, including from the clerk's list, then any of those who are in opposition to the application may now speak at this time. Clerk, are there any names on that list? There are none. Anyone in attendance at this meeting intending to speak in opposition to this application may so indicate at this time. Okay. And finally, the applicant has the privilege of speaking, should they so wish. I believe the Lutenegers have joined us by video conference. Would you like to speak, or are you satisfied at our progression so far in this meeting? Sorry. You may need to unmute your microphone if you wish to speak.
Hi, this is Crystal Lutenegger speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Okay. Just want to say thank you to Mayor Gundrum and the council members and Clerk Pat Bearfeldt and Sean Yilmaz for the extra efforts coordinating this meeting to accommodate our current restrictions. So it's just very much appreciated for you to hear this evening. Thank you very much.
Well, and thank you and your partner for being our first victims of this process. So
glad to help.
Thanks. Okay. Are there any council members who wish to make comment at this point on this application? Reference, do we have any indication of that from the chat window? Nothing at this time? Okay. So notice of the decision related to this matter will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The council's decision is subject to appeal to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. That brings to an end our interaction on this matter. And to wrap up the public meeting, I do have a resolution for council consideration that reads as follows. The public meeting for the purpose of a planning act application is now adjourned at 7:21 p.m. and that council reconvene into regular open council. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen as our mover for that?
Yes, Mayor Kasenberg, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, would you second that for us?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate from councillors? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Seiler, what say you?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. So that is carried. That brings us back into session, and it's proposed that we deal with the legislative matters related to this immediately. So I have in my possession both a resolution of council and a draft bylaw for our consideration. The resolution reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves, the application for a zoning bylaw amendment affecting property described as Lot 32, Concession 8, 6237, Line 90, Wallace Ward of the Municipality of North Perth. The proposal is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2014, conforms to the policies of the County of Perth Official Plan, and meets the provisions of the North Perth zoning bylaw. Can I call on Councillor Behrens as our mover?
Yes, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our second?
I will second that.
Thank you. Councillors, any discussion, debate, or questions at this point? If you have them, please indicate through the chat window to the clerk. Seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote.
I didn't get a vote, but I'm in favor. I'll log out of eScribe and try again.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Anstead and Councillor Seiler. We're looking for you as well. He got it. All right. That is carried. Thank you, Council. And now we'll move to the bylaw, that bylaw number 78-2020 being a bylaw to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Johnston, would you like to move that?
Yes, I would move that.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
Through you, Mayor Todd, yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on the bylaw proposition? Seeing none, let's have that vote. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to our next item of business. We can move on to a delegation that we have this evening. My pleasure to invite Jean Chartier from Paradigm Transportation Solutions Limited. That company is our Transportation Master Plan consultants to address council and to give a presentation to council. Ms. Chartier, welcome. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. So our firm has been retained to assist the municipality with preparing your first transportation master plan. And we're very excited to be assisting on this project and hoping we can bring some of our expertise and some of our past practice to helping you develop a contemporary document that'll assist you over the coming years in addressing transportation matters Next slide, please. So just a brief overview of tonight's presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about what a transportation master plan is, some of the goals and objectives that have been set out for the North Perth Transportation Master Plan. Explain to you what our project approach and schedule will be. Talk a little bit about our engagement strategy and the planned activities. And finally, just highlight what our next steps are going to be. Next slide, please. So a transportation master plan is in essence a strategic planning document that council and municipal staff use to assist in addressing transportation matters. It really sets out your vision for transportation within the municipality. And one of the objectives that has been set forth in the terms of reference is to come up with a vision for a multimodal transportation system. And what we mean by multimodal is more than just simply roads, as that has sort of historically been the practice in many municipalities in Ontario, is to focus solely on the road system. But there's a clear recognition that other modes of transportation, including walking and cycling, play a vital role in most communities. So we're looking to come up with a transportation master plan to the year 2041 for the municipality. That's going to align with your ongoing land use planning initiatives, the update of the county official plan, guidance that's provided by the province. So it's in line with those time horizons. What the plan will provide is a series of policies, programs, and infrastructure improvements to meet the needs for your roads, parking, and active transportation infrastructure within the municipality. The goal of the plan is to ensure that it's a sustainable plan, that it's consistent with overarching growth plans for both the municipality, the county, as well as the province. Something that also is accomplished through the execution of a transportation master plan is to satisfy elements of the municipal class environmental assessment, which is the approved planning process under the Environmental Assessment Act for the development, design, and implementation of municipal infrastructure projects. So what we mean by that is that by doing a transportation master plan, the municipality is able to satisfy some of the initial steps in its planning of future infrastructure projects. So it has the benefit of achieving that as well. That also, though, does have certain implications in terms of the manner in which we give notice of the initiation and the conduct of the plan, as well as who we consult with through the execution of the process. Next slide, please. I also like to point out in these sorts of presentations what the plan won't address, because I think there's often an expectation that this is sort of the panacea to addressing all of your transportation woes. And it will address existing and projected transportation needs within the municipality, but it's not intended to be a prescription. It's not intended to be a detail-oriented document that focuses on minor projects, detailed operational issues, or items not necessarily affecting long-term direction. So I give you an example of your road rehabilitation program. You would be doing road rehabilitation regardless of whether you have a transportation master plan or not. But we may be able to integrate elements of the road rehabilitation program with other projects in the longer term. So there's an opportunity to look at your system holistically. It also won't address things like, unless there are sort of strategic objectives to be accomplished, but we won't be looking at, does this intersection need a always stop control sign, or does this intersection need a yield sign? Those sorts of very site-specific traffic control device changes aren't something that are typically covered off in a master plan, nor specific on-street parking regulations. The plan will also not delve into items or services that the municipality doesn't have responsibility for, such as provincial highways and Perth County roads. It's not to say that the plan will be silent on those items. By all means, the municipality is certainly in a position, and it's very common for us when we're doing these sorts of plans, to have statements of policy or advocacy for the municipality's perspective about what they'd like to see the county or the province do from a transportation perspective, recognizing that as the municipality, you don't have the authority to actually implement those items. Next slide, please. So just some of the identified concerns that we'll be addressing through the execution of the Transportation Master Plan. We acknowledge and understand that there's been a number of speeding requests, concerns that have been expressed by residents of the municipality, which have been dealt with as requests for traffic calming measures. And there certainly is a relationship between those two items. We also recognize that there's been longstanding concerns about traffic through the heart of Listowel. Our firm actually did some work for the municipality a few years ago on those specific items. So we'll be updating that work, looking at specifically truck traffic, which seems to be a common concern. Also, the application of inappropriate speed limits. So looking at speed limit policy as to what is the appropriate way to look at particular types of roads from a speed management perspective. Acknowledging that there are some limited rights of way within Listowel that impact some of the design decisions. So that'll be something that we factor into consideration. We'll also be looking at concerns about safety in school zones, sidewalks linking schools, what can be done around sort of a policy about dealing with requests for stop signs, traffic calming, and traffic signals, as well as the location of pedestrian crossovers. We know that there's a couple of locations that are of particular interest, and those will be addressed as part of the planning process. Next slide, please. So what we're hoping to achieve, and this was articulated in the request for proposal that was issued by the municipality in the preparation of our response. One of the important things that we envision coming out of this is really a policy and framework document for the municipality. It's going to help in terms of establishing standard practices for roadway classification, streetscape design, parking policy. It'll look at what you can do around assessing and mitigating the impact of development, including measures such as access management to more significant roadways. Look at developing an integrated pedestrian and cycling network, building on your existing trails, any of the existing elements of the network, and looking at where to fill in missing links, strategic expansions, things of that nature. We'll also be providing some guidance around on and off-street parking management and regulation, as well as warrants in the areas of stop signs, traffic signals, and turning lanes. And this is all going to be in conjunction with an overarching traffic calming policy. And finally, we know that there has been a lot of discussion about truck routing within the municipality, unofficial, official designations. So the intention is to have a statement of where trucks are encouraged to operate within the municipality. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned at the outset, one of the objectives of doing the transportation master plan is to satisfy certain requirements of the municipal class environmental assessment. And the municipal class EA recognizes that it is much preferable from a municipality's perspective to look at an overall transportation system or an infrastructure system on a broader basis than as on a project by project basis. So it recommends that municipalities undertake master plans to plan its infrastructure on a holistic basis. And it sets out a number of different approaches for being able to do that. We're subscribing to what's called approach number one, which is the completion of the master plan takes you to a midpoint in the planning of specific projects, but there would be further steps required, consultation, design on any specific undertakings that arise from the master plan. So it's a pragmatic approach to doing sort of comprehensive planning, yet not committing you to have to spend money on projects that may not happen for a number of years in terms of more detailed design. So what we try to accomplish through the master planning approach in terms of doing a municipal class EA is to satisfy the first two phases of the municipal class EA process. It's a 5-phase process. And those first two phases really look at the planning of the system. And then phases 3 and 4 get more into the design of the specific facilities. So what we're hoping to do through phase 1 and 2 is identify the problems and opportunities, and through phase 2, identify the alternative solutions. So in the middle of the sort of grayed out area is sort of a timeline of the various tasks that have been identified for the study. So we're pretty much through task 1, the project initiation. We're gearing up into the review of the background information. I'll talk to you a little bit about the engagement. And then after that, we move into the subsequent phase of work, which is more or less developing the elements of the plan. So based on our schedule, we got underway just after Christmas. We're going to be probably till end of August, dealing with sort of the first phase. We overlap a bit of the second phase with the first phase in terms of being able to start into some of the detailed analysis towards the end of phase 1. So we anticipate sort of July until early next year for the second phase of work on the project. Next slide, please. And one of the important elements of a master plan is community and stakeholder engagement. And it's sort of first and foremost, one of our first tasks is to develop an engagement strategy. So we've been working with municipal staff to derive an engagement strategy that will enable us to achieve these 5 objectives we set out, making sure that we inform the public and stakeholders that this process is underway, educate them on transportation needs, issues, concerns, and opportunities within the municipality, provide a mechanism for two-way conversation. Based on that conversation, we would then refine what is being proposed or our understanding of what the needs are, and then use the support that we've garnered through the engagement process to help get a plan to council that's generally supported by the community. I can't guarantee it'll be complete consensus, but at least it'll have had the opportunity for people to provide meaningful input and identify any potential concerns. So how do we do that? We do that through early engagement. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple things that we've got underway. Information sharing is important, using multiple strategies, and given our current situation with the pandemic, digital techniques take on a very new and important role in the engagement strategy. Next slide, please. So really underpinning all of our engagement activities is going to be the Your Say North Perth site. We're going to leverage that to the extent possible. We're using this software in pretty much almost all communities now we're working in, and it's proving very effective in terms of getting community input, providing a standard place for people to look for information and to participate in a project of this nature. So in our first round of engagement, which we're going to be getting underway with almost immediately once we're done today's presentation, this was the sort of the kickoff of the process. We've developed some content for the Your Say North Perth site. That content includes a public survey that we would encourage community members to fill out about their transportation behaviors, transportation concerns, anything that they'd like to see addressed through a transportation master plan. We're also, as part of that, enabling the mapping feature of the Your Say North Perth site that enables people to pinpoint specific locations and issues that will enable us to provide some more focused review around any targeted areas that'll help making sure that people feel that their voice is heard on a particular topic area. We also intend to use your social media channels to get the word out that we are undertaking this exercise. It's done in conjunction with posting of information on the Your Say North Perth site. So that'll be one item that we'll get underway shortly as well. If things change in the foreseeable future with regards to being able to reach out to people in a more face-to-face manner, we would envision doing what we call pop-up information sessions, where what we would do is we would go out to a community event, allow people to express their views, ask them a couple of very simple questions, but it allows us to get the word out and engage with a lot more people than if we were to have, say, a public meeting. That, what we're finding with those sorts of initiatives is they're not very good in the early parts of a study like this. People just don't tend to be as interested. So we find the pop-up information sessions useful. Now, if the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions still limit the amount of contact we are able to have with the public, we will use the online video targeting message forums on the Your Say North Perth site, as well as the municipality's YouTube channel, to be able to have structured discussions or allow people to have opportunity to provide more information to us through that mechanism. And then we would undertake some targeted stakeholder sessions as well. So we've done this in other communities where we sort of set a day aside and say, between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, we're going to listen to people who have an interest in this particular topic. Between 9 and 10, we talk to another group of interested parties. So it's a whole day of listening, enables us to get at a broad group of more specific stakeholders that we know have a particular interest. So that would enable us to do that. And then in the second round, sort of when we're in the process of formulating the plan, trying to bounce ideas off people to ensure that we're heading in the right direction, we would typically have a community open house. So that would be late this year, early next year is sort of what we're envisioning for that. So again, hopeful that the COVID-19 pandemic will be receded enough that it'll enable us to be able to do face-to-face, but not, we'll use a tool like this to be able to have community open house. And finally, again, Your Say North Perth will play a very important role in getting the message out about where the plan's at, getting feedback on the plan. Next slide, please. So just finally, our next steps. So we're going to formally launch the study as of today. So there'll be some material that'll be going up on the Your Say North Perth site tomorrow in terms of a series of frequently asked questions, information about the study, opportunities to participate in the survey, as well as the mapping exercise. We also need to issue the formal notice of study commencement pursuant to the municipal class environmental assessment. So that'll be going out tomorrow to a wide variety of regulatory agencies and known stakeholders, as well as being posted in the local paper for a series of 2 weeks. Then we will, in the background, we'll also be doing our technical review of background information. Municipal staff have been uploading a variety of different documents and data for our perusal, and so we're in the midst of doing that now. We will get underway more formally with the round 1 engagement, which we're anticipating probably is more in towards the summer. Recognize that that's not usually the preferred time of year, but I think given sort of the circumstances this year, it shouldn't be as much of an issue, but we'll sort of monitor where we're making out in terms of the participation. And if we have to extend into September, then we look at that as well. And then finally, there's a report that we would prepare at the end of phase 1. Basically, we're writing the plan as we move along. So it would be the first pieces of the plan, and we'll be submitting those to municipal staff for the purposes of their review and comments. So that's all I had to say this evening. Thank you very much for your time. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Chartier. Councillors, do you have any questions? If you do, please express your interest in asking them through the chat window. Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you very much, through you, Mayor, to Jean Chartier. Nice to see you again, Jean. The question I have is this, regarding the timing of the information we're finding out in terms of our transportation master plan and the input into the new county official plan. Are we going to be able to meet the timelines to put any implementation pieces that we may have in the master plan into the county official plan? Thank you.
Through Mayor Kasenberg to Councillor Rothwell. Nice to see you, Councillor. That's certainly our intent, to ensure that the work that we're doing will feed into the county's official plan. I may have to have a member of municipal staff answer sort of the specifics of that, because we're, you can appreciate, we're sort of acquainting ourselves with the process. So I'm not sure if whether Mr. Kelcher. Yeah.
Mr. Couch, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, I've been coordinating with Mr. Yilmaz on the master plan process with the county and have been feeding some information for review to him. That is the intent, that we'll be able to keep in line with the county plan and provide information and link it together in the transportation components of the plan. I understand it's still in draft, and that coordination will continue. And as we get further into the process, Mr. Yilmaz will probably be coordinating with us even more so to get to the county plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Seiler.
Thank you for your presentation there, Jean. I did hear you say that we were going to be using the local paper in the process of trying to get feedback from the ratepayers. Thank you.
Through the mayor to the council, thank you very much for the question. Under the municipal class environmental assessment, the expectation is that municipalities, when they are undertaking projects following that process, is that they advertise at least twice in a locally circulated paper for the purposes of notifying people that the process is underway.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clerk, anyone else? No? Okay. Again, Mr. Chartier, thank you for attending our council meeting this evening. We appreciate the valued information that you've provided. Very interesting presentation tonight, and look forward to your work. I know that there's a community that's certainly anxious about seeing some of these matters addressed in a coherent plan, and so we're looking forward to all that you do for us. Please pass along our appreciation to those who've supported you in making this presentation tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, councillors, that brings us to agenda item 5 on our evening's program, reports from departments and key staff. And at this time, let's turn to agenda item 5.0. For item 5.1.1, council is receiving a good news report pertaining to a grant coming our way, should we wish it, from the province of Ontario through its Rural Economic Development, or RED program, and a request from staff to proceed with promulgation of the proposed agreement. I think Kim Couch, our Community Development Coordinator, will speak to this matter. Ms. Couch.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. We have been successful in our funding application with RED for the facade improvement project to impact the beautification and revitalization of the downtowns of North Perth. It was submitted in February 2020, and we've just recently been notified of acceptance. And so the province has agreed to fund the project at 50%, and we need to accept that offer and also commit to moving forward with the project by June 19th. So this is just a summary of that project. The downtown facade improvement project is part of our community improvement plan as being an acceptable way of promoting beautification and consistency and to revitalize our downtowns as part of the CIP. And so the project itself it's a 16-month project to hire staff. And we have been encouraged by OMAFRA to submit significant enough of a budget that if we are not successful in being able to obtain skilled staff, that we would be able to hire a consultant. So that is why the total reflects the amount. The intent would be to hire an urban or a regional planner, potentially a recent graduate, for a 14-month period. So we've built some time into the plan to do that staffing. And the intent is to do for them to develop a detailed commercial design guideline that is really needed for us to move forward with a facade improvement program of any kind. And that would be a significant outcome of this project. So that would be the first thing that they would be working on, and then that would be also moving into developing the facade improvement program. Facade improvements are common in area governments or governments in the region, and who have utilized both grants and or loans or a combination thereof. And that would be part of their role as well, would be to research, get public input on the type of facade improvement program that would be feasible in North Perth, and then to carry it through to the actual point of implementation. So the project, originally the application was from June 1st to September 30th of 2021. We're proposing a delay of 2 months to start in August of 2020, and it should be ending of November 31st or November 30th, sorry. And just due to the current priorities that are being placed, and I do believe the province, that is one of their requests, is to reconfirm or to update dates, so this will not be a surprise to them, as well as just confirming ongoing financial commitments. So, so this type of a program does help to foster economic growth. It's been proven that as one business improves or enhances their facade, that it does have a positive impact upon the overall economic beautification and growth within the downtowns. And this program would apply to all of the downtowns of North Perth. And it's normally an application process, and businesses would be able to apply once the program has been developed. Then they could apply for funding or for the loan as is developed. So I have included a detailed breakdown of the costs of the program. The maximum municipal cost would be $57,000, and that would include a portion of grants or loans that is not eligible under the RED program. And so the RED funding itself would be for $47,529.58. And the listable BIA has agreed to fund the project. We will be taking it back to them just to confirm, given the current situations, that they do plan to proceed and what year they would proceed with the funding. We anticipate that they may move the funding to 2021. So depending on that, I've given a breakdown of what the costs would be to the municipality and to overall costs over both of the next 2 years. So our proposal or recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accept the RED grant funding and proceed with the North Perth facade improvement implementation. And I'm open to any questions.
Thanks, Kim. Councillor Behrens, questions, comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Kim, thank you very much for the report. I just wonder if you could just briefly touch on the difference in costs between the North Perth budget document and the report. There is a slight difference in the funding.
Yes.
And I just wonder if you could touch on that. Thank you.
Certainly. So that funding was done, so that was in an earlier application. And when we looked at the funding, they had asked for us to increase the staff costs because they didn't feel we had allocated sufficient amount for that, as well as we condensed the time frame. So it's a combination of both of those things so the numbers are not exactly, as well as how the project is spaced was adjusted as well. So originally we had a longer time frame for staff, but at a lower cost, and they felt that they felt strongly that we should factor in the potential for having a higher wage rate that in the event that a consultant would be needed, as well as also factoring in the BIA costs. So that was what was presented originally for the capital budget, but we did make some adjustments after the first round of applications to the second because it was declined the first time, as you know, in the fall when we had submitted it.
Councillor Rothwell.
Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, through you to Kim. Thanks for your report and presentation, Kim. 2 questions. One, I just want to confirm you did correct the report. I believe it's November 30th. Is that the 2021 is the delay date instead of October 31, 21?
Yes,
2021,
that is correct. I apologize. That should have been extended by 2 months at the end of the project as well.
All right, fair enough. Now, my last question is the issue of the BIA, and I'm concerned about this issue regarding a potential deferral. Can you go into a bit more detail about that, and if and what do we do if BIA does not come forward with the $20,000? Thank you.
I didn't get an indication that there would be a complete deferral, that they would withdraw. I think that may impact the ministry or OMAFRA's proposal for funding, because that is something that they value partnerships in funding for these types of projects. I think it's more on whether they would want to proceed with funding so early on in the project, and because more of the project would be in 2021, that instead of doing 10 and 10, they would just do all of 20 in 2021, sorry. And they had already, their motion when we funded the app or submitted the application was recommending that funding be supplied in the event of acceptance or being offering of the RED funding. So I don't expect that will change. I think it's just a courtesy to take it to them and just update with them with the situation, and just to confirm times have changed considerably since this application was submitted, and just make sure that that still is their intent. And I haven't been given any indication that it would change.
Thank you. And just my last question, I just want to confirm, you said that this applies to all of our communities, including Listowel, Atwood, and Moncton, as well as any others. Is that correct?
Correct. It would be the downtowns of North Perth. So I believe that if there was another, I mean, even Gallenstown, or if that's the intent, is for this program to be eligible for beautification across North Perth, not limited to one center.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else expressing interest in asking a question or making a comment at this point? Okay, Council. And I'll tell you, Council, this afternoon I spoke with the Minister of Agriculture and of Ontario, and he was quite delighted that their ministry was able to make these grants, and noted that he had made a few in Perth County. So he was happy to be obliging in what are difficult times for them too, of course, with the COVID pandemic surrounding them. So I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to accept RED grant funding in the amount of $47,529.58 and proceed with the North Perth Facade Improvement Project implementation. Councillor Richardson, can I call on you to be our mover?
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you second that?
I'd be pleased to second that. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? The clerk is saying that there has been no indication of that, so let's have that vote. And Councillor Seiler, I'm guessing? Councillor Behrens, okay. Councillor Behrens, what say you?
I am in favor.
Thank you. I guess we've lost your vote connection there. So that is carried. Thank you. Next up is item 5.1.2. Council is asked to award the tender for the Administrative Process Efficiency Review. Probably a little bit of explanation is in further order, so I'll call CAO Snell to address this matter.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And the purpose of tonight's report is to update Council on the Administrative Processes Review RFP. So we did receive 5 submissions, and the submissions were reviewed by myself, Francis Hale, and Pat Burfelds, as well as with Josh's assistance. I would say that in reviewing the applications or submissions, all of the proponents were capable of doing this exercise. We did narrow it down and interviewed 4. Based on the result of the submissions and the interviews and consultation with a local municipality that is using KPMG, we have awarded the successful proponent to be KPMG. One of the things that I think helped with their submission is one of the lead consultants from KPMG. She has recently joined the firm after having served in a senior management position in a small municipality in Eastern Ontario, and we received very positive feedback in her dealing with other municipalities in like services. So there is no actual resolution required because this does fall within my ability to award under the procurement bylaw. However, because of council being involved in this program to date, we did want to bring this forward for council's updated information, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Questions from councilors at this point? Okay, thank you. As you pointed out, we were scrambling in the chamber, Chris, just to make sure whether we needed to take an action or not. But when you explained it, it was like, oh, very good. It's problem solved. All right. Thank you for that report and update on this. Next up then is item 5.2. For item 5.2.1, council is asked to adopt the structure of the COVID-19 recovery plan for the organization, including action groups initiated by the mayor for the purposes of supporting recovery. Clerk Pat Bearfelds, who manages our emergency response, has been working on this file and may choose to address it. So Pat, let me just get.
Council, as stated in the report, and as my role as alternate community emergency management coordinator for North Perth, it is the responsibility of the emergency control group to now work on our post-emergency recovery plan. And I have it before you tonight with a few changes, which we can show on the screen. But I think at this time, I think CEO Snell, working with Mayor Kasenberg, will have more comment on this plan based on their involvement in setting up with the committee. So I might hand it over to either Chris or Mayor Kasenberg at this time.
Okay, CEO Snell, did you want to pick up this one?
Thank you, Mayor. So basically, the recovery plan itself follows very much the recovery plan that was drafted by the county and for our on our behalf as well, and all the member municipalities are using a similar outline with some changes to make the plans more adaptable to our own local circumstance. While the emergency is in full force, the Municipal Recovery Committee will largely consist of the Emergency Control Group and with input from the COVID action groups. So we have 4 of those COVID action groups in total, with 3 of them reporting to an umbrella group. The Craigs, as we refer to them, are made up of community members with members of council, with 1 staff liaison appointed to each of the groups. So the 3 subgroups consist of community services, the economy, and agriculture, and they will all report to the umbrella group that will consolidate the actions and provide direction either to the emergency control group while the emergency is in place, or eventually perhaps council once the emergency is declared over. And as well, the 4th group will be a municipal-led group made up of senior staff and frontline staff to really present our plan on how we recover corporately, and basically things like opening our services back up to the public as a result of the current pandemic. Again, because of the nature of this emergency, we suspect the recovery will be ongoing for some time, and that, as we all know, this emergency has been very fluid, and this plan is subject to change as we progress. But certainly, this is the plan as we have outlined with the best information we have today. And I'm certainly willing to answer any questions, and if the mayor would like to add anything this time, that'd be great.
So I think, in the broad stroke of our efforts, we wanted to make sure that those who have been impacted in our community, those who have special insight into certain sectors, would be involved in providing not just advice, but a little bit of research power at times and at other times support with recommendations for council and helping us to enact some of that. That was largely the purpose of the three subgroups. You heard tonight, I guess, not really for the first time, but we're making it more explicit that there is a group above that that will receive reports from each of the subgroups and be the group that sort of refines the recommendations that come to council. Our expectation, our hope is that within 45 days, we will have a first interim report from these groups, all rolled up from the CRAG Parent Committee, or the Umbrella Committee, as it's sometimes called, and that council will have some information to sink its teeth into at that point in time. We have launched that process at this point. We have received some recognition from other county actors who've been interested in our approach to this. And so we found an appropriate North Perth type solution to get us, beginning the work of recovery. As CAO Snell said, I think this will take some time. This is an unusual type of emergency situation. One, of course, that most of us have never seen in our lifetimes before in this significant fashion. And so it's going to take some time to get it done and a lot of goodwill from the community. And so far, I've been quite pleased with the goodwill that we've seen and the exceptional work that's all along with the staff in supporting our work towards beginning to recover. Any questions or comments from council before we have a resolution about this? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks to you and our CEO, Chris Snell, regarding the plan. A couple of quick questions here, just with respect to the recovery plan itself. Now, you had requested councillors to assist or be with the committees as well. I don't see any mention of any. I'm not looking for name recognition. I'm just wondering if council delegates or designates would be mentioned in each of these, well, 3 of the 4 Craigs or not.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. The clerk is sort of telling me across the room that she revisions today that included the names of the councillors who've been lined up against the subgroups, and that will be attached as like an appendix, I think, to the document. We'll take the sort of named positions out of the core of the document and place them in an appendix that's referenced. So there is a revision.
Okay, I appreciate that. And again, it's just to help and support the committees in case members of the public are looking to provide comment, and perhaps they do or don't know some of the names, and if they do know some of the councillors, maybe they could do it through them. So I appreciate that, and thanks for noting that.
Great, thank you. Councillor Behrens, you have a question?
Simply a comment. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. In the document, the emergency plan, it's an 11-page document that was included. There are a list of names of all of the members. However, I believe some of them are incorrect, specifically the economy one. I believe the councillor names there are incorrect, so I would ask that be amended. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll look into that, make sure we got the right names lined up. Everyone was very gracious in accepting the opportunity to participate in this. So we'll just make sure we've got the right names in the right places. Thanks for that, Julie. Any other questions or comments at this point? CEO Snell?
Yes, I just would like to add that we did make some revisions since our first Craig meeting, and Pat will circulate that and post it with tonight's agenda on the website for anybody looking for it in the future. The other thing I did want to mention too, obviously there is a regional recovery action plan also in place that will be happening simultaneously. And so we will be able to tap into the county's recovery as well throughout the process. They're, of course, working closely with the city of Stratford because of the multitude of joint delivery services. But that will be ongoing simultaneously at the same time. So we may, at some point, sort of link in with the regional recovery that's happening at the same time, just for council's clarification. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO Snell. Any further questions or comments before we consider a resolution? Okay, we'll have a resolution brought to our attention for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adopt the structure of the COVID-19 recovery plan. I invite Councillor Seiler as our mover for that.
I will move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If so, please indicate in the chat window. Councillor Behrens.
Yes, could we ask that simply be adopt the COVID-19 recovery plan as amended? Since I do believe there are some amendments coming.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable and a friendly thing. Terry, Leanne, you don't have any objection to that?
That's fine.
That's fine by me.
Okay, very good. So as amended. Thank you. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote. And who are we missing? Councillor Andreessen, I think. Oh, there we are. Okay, so that's carried. We got everybody. Thank you. For item 5.2.2 in our process over the last month, Council has been asked to consider approval of a new bylaw that addresses the establishment of a property standards committee and establishes property standards for the municipality of North Perth, replacing an older document. This is subsequent to certainly earlier discussion and debate so far by Council on the form of the bylaw, with many of the suggested revisions addressed in this bylaw draft. I think I'll ask North Perth Clerk Pat Bearfelds to introduce us to this matter. Just let me get my settings right here.
So as stated by Mayor Kaseberg, this has been our plan to bring this back as a final document tonight on June the 1st. We did have good conversation at North Perth Council at our last council meeting, and a lot of those recommendations have been considered and put through this new bylaw. I just might go over those very quickly, just to remind council of what that was. But starting off under the fences and retaining walls, recommendation was, this was by the solicitor, that council consider putting that into 2 clauses. So that has been done. Just trying to catch up here with myself. Secondly, another comment was made by council in regards to garbage disposal. And the comment was that garbage areas shall be screened from public view. As staff, we had good conversation about that the next day, and recognizing how difficult that clause may have been as we would move forward with trying to enforce that. So working with the CBO and by law enforcement, the council or the recommendation was that we would remove that statement 2.18 from the bylaw, with the intentions that as we move forward with revised site plan guidelines with new construction, that will be considered, and going forth we may come up with other ways that we can deal with that. But just putting that statement in, Councillor Duncan was absolutely right. We weren't sure exactly how we were going to enforce that as well. Recognizing it is an issue, and brought forth to staff in regards to overfilled garbage containers at the end of the street. Maybe that's something that we can work with our manager environmental services, education with the public going forth, working with the BRA as well. that we can work on that. So not that it's been forgotten, it has been removed, but it's something we will continue to consider. The other was under exterior walls. And again, this was recommendation from council only at this time that we would remove the clause G from this particular bylaw, holding our enforcement under maintained and good repair at this time, recognizing that if we're able to find a better way of making those comments and making that more clear in this particular bylaw, we'll be coming back with that as an amendment. And then finally, as a follow-up call after last Monday night's council meeting, we did receive a call and or an email from one of our councillors making sure that in this particular bylaw that it was recognized and could be followed through, that all construction going forward would always have plumbing and the electricity in the constructed homes, even though some sectors and certain individuals chose not to use the electrical or the plumbing. That construction does state it has to be put in each new construction, as well as stated under bathrooms. Every home has to have a water closet. So just wanting to confirm that we do recognize there are various cultures that do not necessarily hook up to it, but in this bylaw and as through the Building Code Act, that is a requirement and electricity is put forward. There were some concerns about the verbiage electrical supply system. So you will note that we have changed the wording there, that electricity services would be capable of the connection if required. So that would be put into all new construction and available for the intended use. So hopefully that's a little bit more clear. So those are the changes that we have. Chief Building Official Ed Podowitz is on the WebEx this evening as well. So I think we've spent a lot of time on this bylaw. We feel that we've captured everyone's comment and have it tonight for council's consideration. And prior to that, as per my report and a question from Councillor Andreessen at last week's council meeting, working with our new bylaw enforcement officer and bylaw enforcement officer Marita, we've really delved into some plans going forward in regards to public education and how we hope to work with the public. As you note tonight, we have attached a pamphlet that we've been working on, as well as there's a few other ideas that we're already working on in regards to moving forward with all bylaws, not just the property standards bylaw, with all other bylaws moving forward. As well, we've had some very good conversations this week with our OPP sergeant and making many plans as to how we hope to move forward with a more collaborative effort enforcing bylaws. So I'm willing to take any questions, as I'm sure Chief Building Official Ed Podowitz is willing to do as well.
Thank you, Clerk Phelps. Councillors, questions or comments at this time? Please indicate to the chat window. Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just a question, Pat. I've had in the last week just people come forth about grass being long at different locations around town. Would this be covered under the Property Standards Act, or how do we get this under control? I know there's a few spots that don't look very good.
Certainly, as any residents would like to share that information with us through the complaint forms, we can either have them fill that out on the municipal website, or they can call in and we can deal with them as well, whether we can set up an appointment to have them fill out the paperwork at the front door. That is something that we would rather deal with under our Tidy Yards bylaw, because that provides us with the opportunity to have follow-up within 48 hours. That's the better bylaw to enforce that rather than the property standards. But we're certainly willing to look into it, and we will follow up if known.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
Any other questions showing up in the chat window, Clerk Phelps? Okay, Council, I have for our consideration a resolution, a bylaw approval resolution, or establishment resolution that reads as follows: that bylaw 80-2020 being a bylaw to establish a property standards committee for the municipality of North Perth and for prescribing standards for the maintenance and occupancy of all property within the municipality of North Perth and prohibiting the use of any property that does not conform with the standards and requiring such properties to be repaired, maintained, or cleared of buildings, structures, debris, or refuse, and prohibiting the removal of any notice, sign, or placard placed thereon in accordance with this bylaw be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I call on Councillor Anstett to serve as our mover for this one.
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Please indicate that in the chat box. Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That moves us along to item 5.3. We have no report indicated from our interim manager of recreation tonight as that item. So let's move along then to item 5.4. As item 5.4.1, staff has brought forward for council review the accounts as of June 1st, 2020. I'll note that Councillor Behrens and Deputy Mayor Kellum have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and will absent themselves from consideration and voting. Are there any questions from councillors other than those two about this for our staff? Seeing none, I'll introduce the resolution for our consideration that the following summary of accounts be received by council for information with a bottom line total of $2,015,035.98. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for that?
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Item 5.4.2 invites council to set in motion the maintenance and repair of the Boyle Branch 1 municipal drain and the Voskamp municipal main drain. Are there any questions by councillors on the report that has been prepared for you by staff? Oh, we went into the WebEx window. Councillors, just bear with us. Okay, is Simon available? We are having a technical problem. Just minimize that one. Councillors, hold on for one moment. Okay, sorry about that, Council. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, but Simon to our rescue. We appreciate his ongoing talent at pulling us away from the edge. Okay, so questions or comments on the report and the proposed bylaw related to the drain? Just the one. We have two. What am I missing? Okay, so I have the Boyle documentation here. But it's okay, I see it. Thank you. Sorry, little confusion with the mayor's papers too. So I have a resolution for our consideration then, Council. Two of them related to these drains. The first is that bylaw 70-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Boyle Branch 1 municipal drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I invite Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover on that one.
Yes, I'll move that, Mayor Todd.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, would you serve as our seconder for that?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Seeing no indication of that, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And we have one more just like it. As the saying goes, second verse, same as the first. That bylaw number 71-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the maintenance and repair of the Voskamp municipal main drain, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I invite, where am I here? Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, will you second that?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, council, on that matter? Seeing no indication of that, let's have that. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 5.4.3. Staff has brought forward a bylaw draft for consideration related to the construction of the Lynn municipal drain. Are there any questions of staff on this one? No? Okay, so here's the proposed resolution. The bylaw number 72-2020 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 106-2016 for the construction of the Lynn municipal drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. And said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover on that. Councillor Andreessen?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstead, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate, councillors, on this one? Just indicate that in the chat window. Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Next, for item 5.4.4 and further to an earlier request for a report by council, we are asked to consider receiving an update on the development of a Wallace history book, a project supported historically by this council. Are there any questions or comments on this report from councillors? Any indication of that in the chat window? Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Councillor Andreessen.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I know that in 2017, there was money set aside in that budget to support this project. Does that money get carried forward as we haven't made any budgeting for the current year, but is that money carried forward from 2017? Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Can I call on Ms. Hale, our treasurer, to comment on that one?
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. At this point in time, that funding is part of our general administration reserve, as it was not spent, and it is up to council at this point in time whether they would like to maintain that or carried forward. Currently, there is a motion on the books from 2017 that does indicate that there is that funding available for this group. And I know they are coming back to council later on this year to do a full presentation. And certainly if council did not want to proceed, they should quash the motion as soon as possible. But at this point in time, the group is working with the understanding that that funding is still available.
Okay, just a quick question then. If we don't take any action, that is a signal to the group that all is well and they can proceed with their work. Is that correct?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. Any further, Councillor Behrens, would you like to offer comments or questions?
Yes, thank you very much for the report. I look forward to Dave Bender coming and making a formal presentation. And if we could ask Dave, since a lot of the information was gathered very early and there would be updates to the information since it has not yet gone to print, could we ask Mr. Bender to respond to that in his presentation? Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I think the staff has taken note of that request, and we can make sure that that it is looked after. Any further questions or comments? Okay, well, I have a resolution for our consideration that reads like this: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the Wallace History Book Update Report dated June 1st, 2020 for information. Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our mover?
Yes, I would move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
Yes, I'll second that.
Great, thank you. Any discussion or debate? So indicated, interested, please indicate in the chat box. And there's no indication according to the clerk, so let's have that vote. Oh, change the mode. Oh, there we go. We're missing one vote. Councillor Johnston, what say you on that?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you, and that is carried. Okay. So we're going to move on to item 5.5. And with item 5.5, let's turn to item 5.5.1. Council is presented with further information subsequent to its earlier receipt of a report related to potential timing of changes to our Blue Box recycling program. As council will recall, our program contractor, the Blue Water Recycling Association, indicated that we should select a date for the proposed transition to producer responsibility and has suggested a date for our consideration. Instead of me getting the details, I think we'll ask Mr. Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to lead us through this. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. As you mentioned, I did bring a report earlier on February 24th with some information regarding the upcoming Blue Box transition. At that time, Council requested some additional information, which I have tonight. And they also asked that a letter be sent to the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and that letter be copied to AMO, Roma, and OSUM, identifying that a staggered approach to the Blue Box transition poses a lack of equitability across Ontario municipalities. So that letter was sent and received, and we have not received any comment back from that I'm aware of. So the municipal transition is proposed to occur between 2023 and 2025 over a 3-year period. And in order to facilitate the development of a transition approach by the MECP, AMO has requested that non-binding resolutions from every municipality in Ontario indicating a preferred date to transition their Blue Box programs to producer responsibilities. The resolutions would provide AMO and the MECP with an indication of which municipalities are interested in transitioning in each of the 3 transition years. And they have asked that this be completed by the end of June. I'd like to note again here, as I did in the last report, that would just be a stated preference, and it would not necessarily be the final determination of a transition date, nor would council be obligated in any way by the date that is specified. So in speaking with AMO last week, to just kind of update, close to 80% of municipalities in Ontario have indicated their intentions. However, only about 25% have actually presented the requested council resolutions to AMO. And the approximate breakdown is a little bit surprising to me, but this is what I was provided with. In year 1, 30% of those 80% of municipalities looked at year 1, 20% at year 2, and 50% in year 3. That information was provided by AMO. And a lot of that was brought on, they thought, by dealing with existing contracts. Some of the municipalities, the larger ones, have existing contracts with contractors providing the service. And also there was a lot of questions about a lot of unknown and concern since there's no legislation in place. It hasn't been developed yet. No one's had a look at it yet. Blue Water Recycling has proposed the attached resolution. And they looked at a number of reasons of why they wanted to look at a transition date, not in the first year, but in the second year. Possible effect of the elections that could take place in 2022, both provincially and in municipal elections. They advised against the January 1st transition date in any year because of the busy time of year and also because of the weather-related cancellations. The biggest one, I think, is that legislation is not being developed and it's not expected to the end of the year. Another important one that is noted is that the recycling service is integrated with waste collection. That's what they refer to as co-collection. And it's serviced at the same time in the same truck. And that would really affect things especially if a different recycling company took over and Blue Water wasn't involved. We may have to look at tendering the waste portion of it. And finally, the municipality is part of a cooperative which has invested substantial capital resources that need to be optimized and considered as any part of any new system. The MECP has committed to a seamless transition of the Blue Box program with no impact to residents. However, there are many outstanding questions, and these are just a few of them that come to mind. What materials will be collected in the Blue Box and how? That hasn't been determined or finalized yet. What will service levels be? What specific services currently provided by municipalities will be transitioned? And what if our current program provides waste collection as well as recycling? Will we still be able to collect recycling at our landfills? And what if any, will the funding levels be for non-transitioned municipalities during the transition period? So there's a lot of things that I think the regulation, when it comes out, will answer a lot of these things. But right now, we don't really have a lot of the answers for that. And there's also a great deal of uncertainty as what the effect of this transition will have on the membership of the Blue Water Recycling Association. And as a member of the BRA, it's important that all municipalities transition at the same time. And I did include, for Council's information, an email that I received from Francis Veilleux, who is the president of BRA, and that was on March 3rd, which was after the presentation that I brought last time, or the council report that I brought in February, asking him to elaborate a bit more on some of the reasons why he chose to go, or why he's suggesting the April 2024 year 2 transition date. So that was attached, and I don't think I'll go through it all, but if there's any questions about that at the end, I'd be able to try to go through them with you. Looking at the financial implications, we don't really know exactly what they are right now, but there will be substantial savings in recycling costs over many, many years to come, and not just the first year or second year. This would be something that would be ongoing. So that's, I also have one other thing I wanted to mention, that in the suggested council resolution, I'd added a little bit to it on the first page of it, where it talks about that the municipality of North Perth would like to transition their Blue Box program to full producer responsibility in April of 2024, preferably at the same time as all other Blue Water Recycling Association, and that be contingent on the analysis of regulatory requirements once they are finalized, and that their impacts on the municipality of North Perth. This resolution is non-binding, and the council reserves the right to determine an alternate preferred transition date based on advice of staff after analysis of the final regulation. So that gives, I think, a bit of wiggle room should things be drastically different than what we're expecting. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mark, for your report. We're just noting that we don't have the full text of that resolution at my desk, but I think we have you read that again when we have concluded our discussions, just so that we all know what we're voting on. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments at this point? If so, please indicate through the chat to the clerk, and we'll queue you up for speaking. Doesn't seem like there are any questions or comments. Mark, given that you've revised the resolution, I think we should have you read this into the record, or do we have it?
I believe that this was the what I attached. It's a 2-page document from Blue Water. It's a Blue Water Recycling Association suggested resolution.
Okay, so then the resolution that we have sort of covers and brings this piece in as sort of an attachment almost, right? Is that the way to look at this, Fairfield, you think? Yeah, okay, so then council, we do have a resolution that will do the job, and we'll sort of bring this in as an appendix almost to support this resolution. The resolution draft reads like this: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth proceed to adopt the attached Blue Water Recycling Association suggested resolution with a Blue Box transition to full producer responsibility date of April 1st, 2024. A year shy of my 60th birthday. Let's see here. Councillor Johnston, would you like to move?
Yes, without getting you to read the whole thing, I guess I would move that.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that consideration. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you second that?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you. And he didn't ask me to read the whole thing either. All right, any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Rothwell? Councillor Rothwell? We're not hearing you. Alan, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay, sorry, there must have been a problem. Sorry, I'd like to thank Mark, through you, Mr. Mayor, for the report. These are very challenging times, and I can assure you, as the Blue Water Recycling rep for our area, is that we've had many conversations regarding this transition, and unfortunately, it's not as seamless as we've been hoping. And I think the middle of the road recommendation, which is incorporated into Mark's report here, is an appropriate way to try to sort of hedge our bets, if you will, in terms of making sure that we are ready to transition and that there is a program to transition into by the 2024. So I'll be voting in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the context there. That's appreciated. Okay, any other comments or questions, debate, discussion, anything like that? So this has been duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. Councillor Rothwell, we've lost your vote. What say you?
I'm in favor. E-scribe, I may have to restart. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Let's turn to item 5.6, and that brings us to, first up to item 5.6.1. As item 5.6.1, council is asked to award the tender for the project described as the Line 84 reconstruction project. Staff and the engineer have reviewed bids and proposed to award this project to Bluecon Construction of London, Ontario. I will ask Lyndon Couch, our manager of operations, to address this matter briefly. Welcome, Lyndon.
Thank you, Mayor Kastenberg, members of council. In front of you is the award recommendation for the low bidder Bluecon. You'll recall from the capital budget process that this project was listed. It came in just on budget for construction. This is the first project this year that has been on budget, so we were encouraged to see that. It was a very competitive process, only $30,000 between the low two bids. The recommendation is for Bluecon. They're currently conducting the Albert Street trunk construction and have done the roundabout, so we've got a very good firm coming in to do the work. The recommendation is in front of you. This job has expanded and does include the western leg of water main installation out to New Life Mills as well to support those industries out on the west side of Highway 23. The amount total $4.163 million to Bluecon, as I say, is the recommendation in front of you for the whole project. The one item that has changed since introduction to the capital process has been that this was opted as a 2 or 1 year project. We believe this will now turn into being a 2-year project, looking at the first section from New Life through to our stormwater pond on Road Line 84, and then the second component from that point over to Tremaine Avenue. The reason this was changed was because it's an extremely competitive market right now, and several bidders had said that the job of its size could be more achievable in a 2-year process, and that's why the bid went out that way. It won't affect pricing. It won't affect really the handling of traffic or anything other than the fact that we'll have to restart again in the spring and complete probably by midsummer next year.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Councillors, any questions or comments? Councillor Anstett.
Thank you, Mayor Kastenberg. Through you, thanks, Lyndon, for the report. Just a quick question on the project schedule, the estimated expenditures, everything's listed there. I just had a question. What would the other, that's an amount of $5,000, what's included in that? Thank you.
The other amount was an estimate of water main that was to be added to the job, and that was that section from Bassett through to New Life Mills, and those would be additional fees in combination with development charges. Again, there was an estimate at that time. Those amounts have changed with the tender opening, and I had a meeting today with the Director of Finance and the Manager of Environmental Services, and we're looking at the project in terms of how it's funded, in terms of those users along the entire line and how we allocate those costs to them. So that's under review right now, and I've stated that in the report. This is a standard procedure, and it could probably be spoken to by Fran better in terms of how we allocate, create a bylaw, and then charge out these costs for installation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anstett. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I have a resolution for our consideration, Council, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth award tender NP 19125, Line 84 water main and road reconstruction to Bluecon Construction, 1885 Crumlin Side Road, London, Ontario, in the amount of $4,163,596.68 plus HST. And I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover.
I will gladly move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none from the clerk, let's have that vote. Councillor Roth. Oh, now we got it. So everyone's back in, and that is carried. All I can say is giddy up. Okay, let's move on to item 5.6.2. Staff is returning to report on a matter earlier deferred by council, namely making a choice from amongst options related to the construction of a noise barrier berm by the developer of the Maitland River Estates 2 proposed project on land edging municipal land that is part of the North Perth Trail system. I'll ask Mr. Couch for any further comments in this matter before entertaining questions and discussion. Lyndon, welcome.
Thank you. As discussed, council had asked for a report back on the financial differences between the various options, and I'll just remind that those options were for us to provide material in the intent to own the berm, then secondly that the developer would own and would remove part of our tree line in order to construct, and then thirdly that the developer would own the berm and not impact the trees. Since the report was last written and we last discussed this topic, some of the materials through the regulatory process have gone from Albert Street into that area at the owner or developer's risk. I would just like to qualify or just clarify, it's H&J Dunnigan is the owner. I listed it as Wallace View, I think, in the report, but it's H&J Dunnigan's. So in correspondence with the planner, they're continuing to do work, earthworks. Their subdivision proposal is moving through. And at this point, the recommendation from staff is that there was no clear financial advantage to trucking to this location. Some bids were high, some bids were low. It does turn out that the probable location of some of the fills from 84 will head that way. But again, no financial advantage that was clear because bid prices were varied in this one item. The low bidder happened to bid this item slightly higher, yet overall, they are still the low bidder and awarded the work. So the recommendation from staff is to wait on the subdivision application process. And then the motion in front of you is really motion number 3 that would state to allow or to have the developer move on with the work and not impact the trees, and that this discussion has good mileage in terms of the fact that we've had a good background on it. When the subdivision application comes to us, we'll be able to discuss the details of ownership and anything else that the developer would propose at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Coach. Councillors, questions or comments before we consider a resolution? Clerk, anyone expressing interest there? Okay. So let me introduce the resolution for our consideration. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommend that the private development owned by H&J Dunnigan Holdings Inc., known as Maitland River Estates 2, not remove municipal trees during preliminary earthworks and construction. Can I call on Councillor Seiler for our mover for this?
Yes, I will move it.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, any discussion or debate? Please make your intent to speak known to the clerk through the chat window. And seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That moves us along to, we have no indication of requests from our fire chief as item 5.7 on our agenda, which brings us to agenda item number 6. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask staff or our committees at this time? To request again the opportunity to speak and make that request, please so indicate in the chat feature of the web conferencing tool. Councillor Rothwell.
Oh,
Councillor Rothwell?
yes, I'm having problems here with my.
Oh. Try again. We're still not hearing you, Alan. Are you available?
I'm not sure.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mayor Todd. We seem to have a problem with my button on my phone. Anyway, sorry for that problem. The question I have is a follow-up from last week's meeting regarding an update of our project construction page on our North Perth website. And I'm just wondering, as part of that update, if we could incorporate some project photos, and simply for the reason that in COVID, we're being asked to stay home as opposed to being out and about in our community. So specific projects that are further afield, such as the new library in Moncton and daycare center and so on, are proceeding along, which is wonderful, but we have no idea, because we're being asked to stay close to home as opposed to being on the road, what is happening there. I have contacts with some of our friends and others down that way, but frankly, it would be good for council to understand the progress there, as well as such important projects like the bridge on line 81, and as well as the Albert storm sewer. So I'm just wondering if through you, Mayor, that public works staff and others regarding our capital projects and so on would be willing to incorporate some photos once a month or something, because as I understand, staff are out on their site as part of the review and taking photos, if they would be willing to share that as part of their update. Thank you.
Great, thank you. CAO Snell, is that something that can be acted on with our team?
Yes, I think that would actually be a great addition to any website page that we create. So we can try and add that to our detail as we progress.
Great, thank you. We don't need a resolution for that. That's just for the advice on the matter already considered. Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum?
Yes, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. This is just a question for Pat in regards to Councillor Seiler's comments earlier with regards to the tiny yards bylaw. Is that form available on the website?
Yes. There is a form. No, I'm good. No, yeah, there's a form. Whoops, I'm still, yeah. And as well, there's an opportunity on the website to report an issue. There's a couple of spots that you can actually do that. And if someone doesn't want to use the website, Deputy Mayor Callum, I'm more than happy to speak with them on the telephone if they want to call in, or like I said, we can make sure they get a paper copy at the front door. That we're willing to work with them on that. Rather than like I said, we want the complaint to come through and be that reactive approach, because we're sticking with that, but we're more than willing to take whatever means at this time that we have to do. A telephone conversation with myself would also be fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions, requests for reports here? Okay, seeing none, let's move on. Item 7 on our agenda relates to correspondence, and we received no items of correspondence beyond that already shared earlier in our council meeting under various agenda items. That brings us to item number 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. And we have no further bylaw proposals to deal with this time, short of what lies ahead with our confirmatory bylaw. That brings us to item number 9 on our agenda. Are there any notices of motion from councilors attending this evening? Any indication of that, clerk? Councillor Rothwell, did you wish to speak? Councillor Rothwell?
Hello. Yes, this is not a notice of motion. I had asked for a comment or a question earlier on regarding our CAO Snell's presentation regarding the modernization program.
Yes.
Could I ask that question now?
Oh, sure. Why not?
Thanks very much, and sorry for the delay. I did answer, but there seems to be a little delay. I'm not sure if it's perhaps myself or the computer, but or the network. Nevertheless, my question is regarding the modernization or the program. Is there a specific administration item that North Perth is looking at? And if so, are there other municipalities within Perth County? As I understand, we all have received funding from the province. Are we all looking at the same processes, or are we looking at different ones? Thank you.
CEO Snell.
So not every municipality, from my understanding, was successful or even applied for the modernization grant. We all were part of the county application reviewing public works. I know, or I believe West Perth was successful in looking at some of their IT components, as well as the town of St. Mary's is doing organization review, and they are looking at journey mapping 4 or 5 processes. Our RFP included the journey mapping of up to 20 processes. So that will be part of the process. We will deal with staff, customers, feedback from the mayor and council as to see what those processes are causing us the most problem from a customer service standpoint. And that's the ones we will choose to both look at from a journey and process mapping process. And I'm assuming at some point, and we did reach out to our member municipalities when we started this process, and although none of them have formally joining us, I'm sure some of them will benefit in some of the processes we improve.
Alan, anything further?
Just one supplementary question that I had regarding the other questions you had asked under item 8, I think it was, of the agenda. Can staff provide us an update, whether it's verbal or otherwise, regarding the ICIF applications, and again, specifically for the community center, Elma Township Memorial Community Center, as well as the North Perth Listowel Library, and where things are at with respect to those funding programs? Thank you.
I'll actually intervene here. I certainly asked that question of the appropriate politicians, our elected officials, and largely was advised that both governments are a little preoccupied right now with COVID matters, and it wasn't an immediate priority. I did take the opportunity, Councillor Rothwell, to suggest to them that the ICIF initiative would be a very useful stimulant to local economies, and that perhaps they'd like to reprioritize that, raise that in its priority. But at this time, the signals that I received from both levels of government were the same, and that is that it wasn't the highest priority on their plate.
I appreciate that, Mayor Todd. And my question, or my concern, is this: I think council all shares the concerns regarding the state of both of these facilities in terms of some significant structural issues, specifically at the library in Listowel. And frankly, if we don't do something soon, we could have a bigger problem than we currently have. So I would hope that we're going to know sooner rather than later. But the problem is, if we don't hear sooner rather than later, we could be stuck with bigger problems down the road. So I'm sure staff and others are aware of this concern, but I just thought I would voice it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Rothwell. And I think it's fair to say that you've hit the nail on the head with the need for a plan B or a plan C, or, you know, a couple of layers of extra plans around this to see how we might proceed. So I think that's work that is progressing internally, and we'll have a report about that in the near future. Any other? Yeah, certainly. I think that brings us to agenda item number 10, which is announcements. Are there any announcements that would be a benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? If you'd like to speak, make your intentions known through the chat window, and the clerk will give me the speaking order. Anything, Clerk Bergfelds? Well, I'm happy to announce, I'm actually quite excited about the fact that I'll be speaking to the grade 7 class at North Perth Westfield Public School on Wednesday via video conference. They've laid out an ambitious set of questions for me to address with the class as part of Mr. Schaefer's civics lessons that he's entertaining with his class. So something to look forward to on my part. Anyone else with announcements that look good for us? We like happy announcements. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 11. I don't believe we have any matters to discuss in closed session of council this evening. So that also brings us past agenda item number 12. There's nothing to report because we didn't have a closed session. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have a draft for a confirmatory bylaw, which reads as follows. Bylaw number 84-2020, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Anstett to serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, would you serve as our seconder? Oh, she's declared. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Councillor Duncan.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on the confirmatory bylaw proposal? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. And now that brings us to the point of adjournment. Councillors, we've completed all the deliberation and taken action on the business that was before us. Before I read a motion to adjourn, is there any further business? Seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration for adjournment. It reads, the council meeting adjourns at 9:08 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, June 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Councillor Behrens, can I ask you to serve as our mover for that one?
Yes, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. This council will meet again in regular council meeting, again using digital technologies on Monday, June 8th, 2020. This meeting is adjourned.